Hi everybody, I'm Blair and I'm a master support player who loves playing enchanters in League of Legends. In this video, I'll be teaching you how to properly build Milio, the newest enchanter in the Rift. If this is your first time playing enchanter or trying to build one, no need to worry because Milio's kit is very straightforward, very beginner friendly, and what's so great about it is that you can actually play it in many different ways depending on your playstyle, your team comp, and the enemy team comp as well. Now, let's start building Milio. Let's start with the runes. I tried many rune builds, but in my personal opinion, Milio only has 3 viable rune paths that are adjustable based on the situation. We have Airy for damage, heals, and shields. We have Guardian for additional survivability, and then Glacial for very specific engage and disengage advantages. Let's discuss Airy first. This is my overall personal favorite for any enchanter supports and of course from Milio. Airy has the strongest early game because you can continuously give pressure by poking your enemies using your normal attacks and your passive skill. So make sure that you use your normal attacks as much as you can. As a general tip, especially in early game, which I think is the most crucial part for playing Milio, you can cast E on yourself to proc Airy and Milio's passive upon hitting an enemy. This does not just deal amazing damage or poke damage, but also gives you 40 gold instead of 20 coming from Spell Thief. This rune path is also the best with Moonstone as it gives buffs for healing and shielding power. It's also important to note that the Airy path gives overall more shields and heals versus if you go Guardian for example. Here's the basic rune path to follow for the Airy build. We go Mana Flow Band for your mana, Transcendence for additional cooldowns, and Scorch for additional early game damage and pressure. For your secondary runes, we'll take Resolve, then Bone Plating if you're against burst damagers, or Second Wind when you're up against a lot of pokes, and of course, Revitalize for additional heals and shields. For stats, you can take Attack Speed since you'll be dealing a lot of normal attacks early game, and then AP and Armor. Of course, everything is totally adjustable. Depends on your game style, your gameplay, and also how your opponents will be playing against you. Second, let's discuss Guardian. Generally, you would want to always get Guardian if you got countered and you're up against laners with strong kill potential. You'll go Guardian for the additional survivability, so if you need to be a little bit tankier or you need to not die if you get hooked for example. As most players will counter Milio using an engaged support like Thresh, Pike, Blitzcrank, Leona, etc., then you go Guardian. One important note is to be mindful of your mana. If you're using your shields a lot, you might not have enough mana once a fight starts, so take this into consideration all the time. For the Guardian rune path, you would want to go Font of Life for additional healing, either Second Wind or Bone Plating for survivability, and then of course Revitalize. For the secondary rune, you want to go Sorcery to Mana Flow Band for additional mana because like I mentioned earlier, this build actually has a lot of mana problems, and then Transcendence for additional cooldown reduction. For your stats, totally optional, but you can go Attack Speed, AP, and Armor again, but then do note that since you are up against engaged supports, you might not be able to use your auto attacks a lot, so if you're not confident in your auto attack skills, then don't go Attack Speed, just go AP Armor or cooldown reduction AP Armor, something like that. Third and the last one, and this build is actually very situational but more so for high elo lobbies as it is a great disengage or can be used to disrupt momentum and dictate the outcome of a fight. Do note that this one should only be taken if you are confident that you can land your Qs consistently, or let's say if the enemy team comp has a lot of melee champions that you can hit with your Q very easily, then you can go Glacial as well. This adds additional value to the engage or disengage potential that Milio's Q has, because as you guys know, it's actually really great in terms of disrupting enemy movement. And you already know naman na Glacial actually reduces the damage coming from your opponents as well. So just in case, going Glacial is totally a great option. For the Glacial Augment rune path, you want to go Magical Footwear generally for free boots, or Perfect Timing if there's a lot of assassins or champions that can actually one-hit you around, let's say, level 6. You also want to go Biscuit Delivery for sustain, and Cosmic Insight for additional cooldowns, especially for your mythic items as well. For secondary rune, you go Resolve, then Bone Plating or Second Wind for survivability, and Revitalize. For the additional stats, you want to go Attack Speed, AP, or Armor, but again, if you're not confident with auto-attacking, don't take Attack Speed, just get CDR or AP again. Now that we know the runes that are good for Milio, let's discuss skill prioritization. The basic skill order that I would recommend is R, E, W, and Q. Initially, I thought maxing Q is good, however, you don't really get a lot from giving additional points to your Q. It only gives additional slow and damage, but cooldowns will remain the same. Meaning, if you miss your Q, and you will miss it a lot, especially if you're a newbie for Milio, all the points are wasted. Maxing W first is not a bad idea, but I won't recommend it since early game you'll need additional cooldowns for your E for better shield spamming to win duels. So maxing E is my recommended priority skill for shields, movement speed, and additional cooldown. Plus, you will definitely not miss this skill since it's point and click. Now you're probably asking me, how about items? Well, let's start with mythic choices. First one, and personally the best one for me, is Moonstone, because Moonstone procs every time you hit a champion with an attack or ability, meaning it will heal whenever it's on cooldown. And then since you'll be attacking a lot, as I've mentioned earlier, then that means Moonstone can potentially continuously proc until the end of the battle or until you die. It also works well with Milio's entire kit because you have lots of shielding and healing to be done, and especially with your W, it creates 3 pulses, or it does 3 pulses, meaning it can potentially heal 3 times, and also proc Milio's passive 3 times towards yourself and any other teammate within the range of your W skill. Another good thing to take note of is that Milio's passive will also continuously proc Moonstone's healing even when your teammates are the ones who are dealing damage with your passive skill. So all in all, Moonstone hits the perfect spot for Milio's mythic choice. Second item would probably be Shurelya's if your team needs extra mobility. It could be used to chase opponents or disengage whenever you need to. And it also gives really great team maneuverability in terms of having additional movement speeds for team fights. It works well together with Milio's W because continuous additional movement speed, meaning your ADC can potentially kite a lot more because of movement speed with attack range from your W. And it's also good for maintaining pressure as the active and the passive coming from Shurelya's allows you to stay on top of someone and capitalize on a misplay, for example, while killing them from afar. The third one and the last one would be Solari. However, do note that this one is only really viable if you go for the Guardian Rune path because you want to be as tanky as possible so that you won't get bursted. It's of course useful versus champions or team comps with heavy burst or heavy CC because, mind you, they will always go for you in case, because you can always cleanse your entire team whenever everybody gets CC'd. However, you can't cleanse if you're dead or, well, if you're CC chained, you know what I mean? So for Solari, going for a semi-tank build is necessary to make this mythic work as the Guardian Shield scales of bonus HP percentage as well. Now let's head on to the other items that you can build once you're done with your mythic item. Do note that all of these are situational and totally adjustable based on what your team needs and what your team needs to counter your opponents. Let's start with Redemption. This one is overall a good pick because it gives you an extra heal and it also strengthens your heal and shielding. Next we have Staff of Flowing Water if your team needs additional AP damage and skill CDR. Next, we have Ardent Sensor, which can potentially be a really great combo with your passive skill. If you have a lot of on-hit attackers on your team, then this one's definitely a good pick. It also gives additional attack speed. Next, we have Anti-Heal or Chemtech Petrifier. It's good versus team comps with heavy sustain, but you can also just build Oblivion Orb first or the basic item before you actually go Chemtech Petrifier towards late game. If you're up against someone like Soraka or Sona, who can deal a lot of sustain healing in your lane early game. Next, we have Mikael's Blessing. This is useful versus team comps with a lot of CC, of course, just like your ult, however, it's single target. Next, we have Knight's Vow. It's useful if your carry gets bursted a lot and your carry needs additional survivability, then definitely go Knight's Vow. And last but not the least, another great item for Milio is Zeke's Convergence. This could potentially be a niche pick as it synergizes well with your ult. It gives your carry additional damage while being cleansed of CC once you cast your ult, basically. Here's a sample final build once you decide to combine all my recommendations. In this fight, I went Airy plus Moonstone for strong shields and healings, and I prioritized in supporting my Jinx Hyper Carry ADC in terms of the item selections that I did. I went Moonstone and then Redemption because I don't really need anti-heal or any other items, but generally Redemption is always going to be good, and then Ardent Sensor to make sure that my Jinx gets the most amount of additional damage and attack speed that she can get from me. And that's it! Since Milio is a back to basics enchanter, you can definitely apply everything that you learned from this video to any other enchanter support build, and I can assure you it will work. If you enjoyed this video or you like more content like this, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or of course like the video. Don't ever feel like you're wasting your time for resting, cause you're not. Don't be the next clown to go down, and as always, remember to always choose kindness. Bye, and see you on the next one.